All right, I'm on. All right, so good evening. Welcome. Every year I do this simulation, I just do a simple spreadsheet. Before I actually go into what that spreadsheet is, I do want to provide a little context for everyone to use on this. For those who have seen me do this in past years, my favorite thing about any model is all models are wrong, some models are useful. So as you go through and you are creating models and using models, always keep in mind at some level they're going to be wrong, and that's not a problem because you don't need them to be absolutely right. You're not looking to mimic reality. You're just looking to get some value, some usefulness out of this. What kind of usefulness do you get? Well, when you're looking at a game, you get a relative value of activities. How much is it worth doing X versus Y? If I have a choice between doing one thing or another, what do I think is more valuable, one versus the other? You can also look at best case and worst case scenarios. In games like this, I like going in and saying, what if it only took me 1 second to do it? What does that look like, right? You know, most of the things that you're doing with games, it's much longer than that, but you can start putting boundaries. And you say, okay, what if it takes me, 20 seconds, 30 seconds? What does that look like? Because then that really starts giving you a sense for sensitivity to changes. A small change in something on the front end may have some bigger impacts. It may be 1 for 1, or a big change in something may have a very small impact to the overall score. So as long as you've modeled it correctly and the relationships are reasonably correct, these are all things you can walk away with a good solid understanding of how it is you should be approaching the game. And what that really does give you, those relative values, is the big takeaway, is it gives you your required deliverables to win, right? What do I need to do to win? That's what the model is for you to make those decisions. Okay? As the title says, it's the basic of every game. Every game that FIRST has done and will do is competing against time. Because of what we're looking at here, I'm just looking at the teleop and end game. It's 135 seconds, just a little over 2 minutes. That's not a lot of time, right? So how much can you do by yourself or with others in about 2 minutes? Because you get out there, who you're competing against? You're competing against the clock. And so what does that mean? What activity or activities score the most points in the time that you have? So that's what you're looking at. Now, people probably in their heads are already saying, well, what about strategy, defense, and team play, and, what are we going to do? Honestly, all that only really matters if you have a robot that can quickly and reliably score. If you have a robot that can quickly and reliably score, then it gives you options to have a strategy, to work with teammates, to do things. If you don't have a robot who can do that, then strategy is it's a non-starter. So it's really the term that's typically used is, they call it table stakes. If you play poker, it's, you put your ante in. In order to play, you need to be able to put your ante in. Well, being able to reliably and quickly score is your table stakes. It's required to even play the game. So as you go through, and this is just show that you better understand the model who haven't seen it before, almost every game, I say almost every game, what does scoring involve? Acquiring a game piece, positioning the robot, delivering a game piece, returning to your start position. That's a cycle. You can go back game after game after game. They all typically will have a cycle. And then they have an end game. And what that end game is, essentially when you're modeling it, all you do is you say, hey, I think it's, in order to do the end game, it's going to take me 10 seconds. I take 10 seconds away from the time I have to do this to score that point there. And that's how you model it. And this game this year is pretty simple. So with that said, I'm not expecting you to be able to read this from there. This is what this year's model looks like if you have pulled it down and looked at it in the Slack. I'm going to run through it piece by piece. Down here on the notes, make that a little bit larger. This model is for a single robot only, right? So this just shows you what a single robot can do. The model only looks at the teleop period with endgame. I'm not looking at autonomous period at all. That's separate segment. Those would be incremental points above and beyond what I'm able to demonstrate here. I've decided that for the modeling here, I'm not going to have a specific task to try and pick a hatch up from the ground. Everything just comes from the feed station, again, just for simplicity. And then the last one is the current model treats medium and high robot bays no differently. So in other words, you've got all the bays that are, I think, 19 inches off the, 19 center off the ground for the hatches for the transport and for the lower rocket. But there's 4 bays that are a little bit higher on the rocket, and then 2 more that are a little bit higher on the rocket also. I'm not trying to account for any differences in time associated with delivering balls or hatches to those. So that's going to be an inaccuracy within this. But since that's only 4 out of the 14 total bays available, I'm willing to live with it. All right, so the next thing is, for those, a little blue box, I'll highlight it. Points, you get 2 points for delivering a hatch, 3 points for a ball. If you get on the lowest platform, it's 3 points. The middle platform, 6 points, and then the highest platform is 12 points. The max number that you see is 14, just shows that's the total number of bays available for you to fill. So that just puts some limits that, you can only do so much. All right, so the next piece is, here's the task. These are going to look familiar to what I said earlier. There's a time to feed the hatch, in other words, acquire that game piece, the hatch, acquire the ball. Position, that's no different for a hatch or a ball. Deliver the hatch, deliver a ball. If you think that's any different, you put those in. I do have a thing there, deliver high. It's not used in this model, but I've got a placeholder in there in case I'm feeling ambitious. And then return. Essentially, that goes back to returning to the neutral position to start the cycle all over again. Those are the tasks that feed into this game. Where do those tasks feed in? They feed in at this top line, which I'll make bigger. This is the part of the model that you edit. All those numbers in green, it's the only thing you need to change on this. That's where you put into seconds. I think it's going to take 2 seconds to grab a hatch from the feeder. I think it's going to take 2 seconds to pick up a ball. I think it's going to take 3 seconds to position. Are these the right answers? No, almost certainly not. They can be whatever you want them to be based upon what you're looking to model. At the very end, you see the HAB 1, 2, and 3. Those are the platform levels, 1, 2, and 3. Those are the amount of time that you think it will take to get onto the lowest platform. 5 seconds, 10 seconds, and 10 seconds. Again, why not? These are numbers that I've made up. You can put whatever numbers you think are appropriate in there based upon how long you think it's going to take you to do those tasks. So once you put those numbers in, they feed into the body of the model down below, which I'll make much bigger. And now you got the scoring cycle. I've modeled 5 different ones. The first one is, all you do is deliver hatches. What does that look like? Your robot will just, in this make pretend world, your robot doesn't have the ability to pick up balls. All you can do is hatches. What does that look like? You don't model balls only because without hatches, you can't score balls, so that doesn't make sense. The next one I do is just hatch and ball, nothing else. That's what you do the entire time that you have, the 135 seconds. And what it does is it does those in pairs. You deliver a hatch, you deliver a ball. You deliver a hatch to keep the ball in, you deliver the ball. Hatch is worth 2, ball's worth 3, so you get 1 additional point for every 2 cycles you get by putting a ball in versus another hatch. And then lastly, these 3 scenarios are the same as this one, except that you're subtracting the time off of these based upon how long you think it'll take to climb the lowest platform, the mid platform, or the highest platform, and then assuming you're successful, you earn those incremental points. So that's what it looks like. And you can see at the end, it gives you some information about the number of cycles that are there. And this will feed into the very end, which is really the results of this whole thing that you're looking at. And so for the scenario that we have here, actually, I think, so for this particular one, everything is essentially, it takes 10 seconds to deliver a ball or deliver a hatch. That's how it's modeled in total. And for that, you can see that, I know they don't line up because I'm making these pieces bigger, but you can score 26 points hatch only, and then 30 points if you do a hatch and ball. And that's a total of 8 ball and hatch cycles. So does that make sense?
Yes.
Why does it make sense?
Because balls are worth more.
Balls are worth how much more?
1.5 times as much. Oh,
One more.
Okay.
So they're worth 1 more, and you do 4 cycles. Therefore, it should be 4 higher than the 26. So these kind of sanity checks are always worthwhile when you look at the model. So far, it's making sense. Then you can start looking through, again, now what you're going to see in these last 33, 36, and 42 is now it's really going to be reflective of how much time you lost versus how many points you gained by being on the platform. And again, it's going to be whether you think it's 5 seconds, 20 seconds, or 30 seconds, you can get some sensitivities there. I did add at the end some things in there that shows you how close you are at maxing out everything. You could see that if you do the hatch only at 10 second cycles, a single robot cannot deliver all the hatches. There's still 1 more hatch that could be installed by that robot if it took them 10 seconds each cycle to do that. Right? And that's not even putting time away to get onto a platform. So it's giving you a sense as to how difficult, this game is going to be in terms of filling up all of those cargo ports. You'll absolutely see it, but you're not going to see it until you actually have 3 high-performing teams working together to do that, I think. All right. So this is the part where I where I will flip over to, this is the actual Excel spreadsheet. It has, this could be interesting here. There we go. So you can play with it. Right now I've got a lot of zeros in there, so the cycle time is 1 second and 4 seconds. So you can start seeing, what the results look like. So I'm going to do is I'm going to drop all of these. It takes 1 second to, and then, what I'm going to change, climbing the platform. Whoa. Takes 1 second also. There you go. So why did I do that? Because now we're going to take a look at what the score looks like. That's telling me if I'm able to do everything they asked me to do in 1 second, the maximum score I could get as a single robot is 82 points. Right? So this is not going to be a 400 or 500 point game. As a matter of fact, this robot is essentially won the entire thing by themselves. So even if you had 3 robots, 82 points is going to be what you're going to see. Now that's going to be meaningful, and I'm going to come back to some conclusions on this, because if you go back and you put some values in here that are a little bit more rational, we'll go with 2, 2, 3. What is it? No. How do I do this? Oh, okay. Then we're going to say I'll put a 3 in here. What I'm trying to do is get this to a 10-second cycle time, just as a number to work from. So let's take a single robot, 10 seconds, the hatch, a ball, and you get to the and you do nothing more. You don't even try and get on the platform. Total points scored is 30. How much is climbing the high platform worth? 12. 12 divided by 30 is how much? 40%. So having a robot that's pretty effective, 40% of the value, 40%, you you can score 40% more of what you're doing by, climbing the platform. Bottom line is climbing that platform is damn valuable, right? You could have a robot that can do a really awful job at this, with the rest of the game, and if they climb the platform and get those 12 points, it makes up for a lot of ground. So it's going to be, the bottom line is that you're able to read in. That's going to be an important part of the game. So I'm going to pause there, and I want to circle back to the presentation. I don't want to beat too many of these points to death, but I'll pause here about the model itself and let anybody ask questions. Yeah.
Does the model include pre-placed catches or balls during autonomous, or is that not included?
No autonomous.
Yeah, no, I don't. Autonomous is kind of self-contained, outside, stuff that exists outside of the rest of the teleop.
Does it give you a boost in your scoring because you won't have to go take a certain number of cycles, but beyond that, that's what autonomous does right now. There's no bonus in scoring. There's no that no precedes the field for you, but that's about it.
Can you bump it up to just a 12-second cycle for curiosity's sake?
Sure.
Just to extend the positioning section of it.
Yeah.
That's going to be more where.
Yeah, a return. So because the return and positioning are common to every cycle, so you want to hit them all. Whoops, I went down. Yeah, let's try that. Let's go the other direction. No, actually, return was 3. I want it to be 5. 24. There we go.
The longer it takes to score, the more valuable your climbing becomes. So unless you're really, really fast at placing, the last 20 seconds or 30 seconds even seems valuable to climb. That's how this is sort of.
So let's go ahead and do this. So we're going to say this is what we're going to call that. It takes 20 seconds to climb. Whoa, I can't do this.
I'm not sure you could climb if you took 220.
Like even if it took 20 seconds to climb, which is almost 1/5, close to 1/5 of your total time, you still get 32 points versus 25 points by not doing it at all.
Yeah, but it's closer to the second step is closer to points too. No.
Well, again, but the other.
He only has 1 second for half 1 and half 2. So
Yeah. If we change those to something a little bit more rational, I don't know, I'll call it 5.
I was playing around with this last night, and half 1 is essentially just driving up. I made that 1 second. I looked at some robots online, and they're climbing to the second one between 5 and 10 seconds, depending on how good they are.
When you say second one, what do you mean?
Just to have
Second
two.
level.
Have two.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen anyone successfully do half 3 yet, at least online. The folks who are doing early builds, I haven't seen a single person do it yet. Everyone talks about wanting to do it. I have not seen a successful one yet.
Yeah. I'm going to completely go off my own topic. Has anyone looked at, someone suggested the other day of a robot that would have a ramp that allows someone else to,
Yep, that's totally legit.
Yeah.
Totally legit.
Anyway.
Yep.
So let me go back to the
Question?
oh, yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
One of those robots last year?
They were playing them last year.
Bot?
They were robots last year.
And then there was Wingbot.
Yep.
What about Flybot?
So ramp bots are a thing in FRC. All right, so let's get back on that.
Okay. So these are takeaways that I put out, and this is my opinion. So I want other mentors in leadership to weigh in on this, but I don't think anything here is controversial. It's not intended to be controversial. So a single high-performing robot is going to score 30 to 40 points in teleop without climbing. It's the only way to score. So must-have is quick, reliable hatch delivery, quick, reliable ball delivery, right? It's not just a fast robot. It's about a robot who can pick something up the first time, doesn't drop it, gets over, gets in front of it correctly the first time, puts it in the first time, doesn't bounce it, doesn't jam it, doesn't have to back up 3 or 4 times. It's boom, 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 boom. As much as that looks like clockwork, that's going to be the perfect robot. I was already talked about the top climbing score is 12 points. That's a lot. It's, given your 30 to 40 points in teleop in theory, that's 25% of the total. So doing a climbing or a robot that assists the climbing is going to be a must-have for a winning robot. What I saw there's plenty of bays out there until we get to the highest level of competition. So people are worried about, you know, what am I going to do? I'm going to run out of bays or anything else like that. That's not going to be an issue.
What's a bay?
The cargo bays.
Ah, got it.
That's where you put the hatch on the front. There's a manual you can read now. And the last one is just, we get real caught up in all the games and the designs and kind of the fun and sexy part of this whole thing. Every robot out there has to have a reliable, no-fail drivetrain, electric, pneumatic, and programming systems, right? You can't, it's unacceptable, for lack of a better way to say it, to lose a match because you forgot to connect the battery, because wiring wasn't secure, because, well, that's a notable occasion, but it's not a standalone occasion. So these are the things that, you know, as you're working on the robot, when people are talking about tolerances, about fit or finish, about paying attention to detail, you know, when I went through the games, I watched all of the games last year, and there's an awful lot of a lot of games where we lost the matches. And you don't have many matches in a competition, right? It's what, 10, 12 total, if that?
Per weekend, yeah.
Yeah. And if you lose 2 or 3 because, I forgot to turn this on or I forgot to do that, you're in a hole that you may not be able to get back out of. So don't ever forget this piece. You know, it's great that you need to do the rest of this, but without the blocking and tackling, you're not going to be able to, you know, break through and I guess stick with the metaphor, stick and make that touchdown. So I just want to foot stomp on that again. So, and again, I'll open it up to the rest of the mentors for questions, comments, observations relative to how the game's played and what's important or not important.
I think it's spot on. I think it's an excellent tool. I've already been playing around with it.
Just a question more than anything. So this is about a single robot.
Yep.
So if you start thinking about you're going to have 3 of them out there, obviously in competition, what do you start looking for as far as your teammates are going to be when you get to an alliance situation? I mean, obviously you can't pick in the beginning, but you know, if you see someone who's really good at putting hatches on and we're really good at putting balls in, hey, that may not be a bad thing if they both climb. So things you start looking at. Is there any way you can kind of take your single model and say, now I'm going to put the points for this team over here and this team
That
here?
gets a little more complicated, and the reason why this was done is so we could get a rough idea of how we want to play the game, how we think the game is played. And Mike's point at the beginning of, we have to put our ante in first, which is make a robot that plays the game efficiently before we can speak about a winning strategy or playing the game with other robots. We have to figure out how we're playing the game ourselves. So this is simplified for a reason, and at some point in time we can sit and discuss, well, what's a winning strategy for 3 good robots? But as we know, we aren't going to see 3 good robots in the field until together on a regular basis until probably D-Champs. This is how it works.
But Stan, this will tell you, and for everyone else, you know, using this model, it gives you a sense for the relative value of activities, best case and worst case capabilities and sensitivities to changes, and that you can use that knowing what your strengths and weaknesses are and what another robot's strengths and weaknesses are. If you understand the relative value, the best and worst case and the sensitivities, it gives you well-informed opinion as to who's going to be a good partner, right? And again, this year's pretty, you know, it won't be easy to execute, but it's pretty simple from a scoring, right? You know, you want to have somebody who can do hatches and balls, and if you only can do hatches, they can do balls, and if you've got people who can climb, you want them on your team. Basically, go out there and just run the heck out of it.
What's different this year is that eliminations are no different. There's no bonuses for doing things like in the past. RP just goes away and the game is played exactly the same way. Tiebreakers are important.
Yeah, but if you can do a ranking point for your team.
Oh no, yeah, for the game for round robin. that's one thing.
You know, I don't normally put this in, I'll answer your question. Let me ask the group. I don't normally look at this or put it in the models. How much are penalties in this game?
A lot.
Like 5 points, 10 points, 12 points? What?
Tech foul is 10.
Oh my, all right, so
Oh, Lord.
how high were these scores?
None.
You get a 10-point foul?
Your partners you'll be able to rely on.
Stacy won't have a foul this year.
No, we're not talking about her, your partners, I'm talking about.
I have no faults whatsoever.
Yeah, so tip, don't foul it. 1 second, Agent.
I had a question about the game. So like, I remember like when they talked about it in the video when the sandstorm like happened, like the cargo bay would tip and like the balls like would fall out, like the balls hatch would come out. When that happens, do we lose points for that?
No, they're not scored. Typically, it's not scored till the ends.
Okay.
So if you put a ball in without a hatch, it'll just end up on the field.
All right.
You have an opportunity to put it back, but the scores aren't finalized until the end.
I think there might be an exception to it. The way I interpreted it is that hatches pre-placed before the game do not count in the final total.
They do count.
No. No. Pre-placed hatches don't count.
Pre-placed balls do count.
Pre-placed balls do, hatches do not.
But they do allow you to put a ball in. They do allow you to get the tie-breaking points for a game.
Yeah, so it was mentioned how fouls are a lot. This is a friendly reminder that if you're going to be scouting, which is most of you, know what the fouls are. Because if you see a team fouling, that means that we shouldn't pick on them.
Even if they're not being called on it.
Yes.
Yeah,
Especially if they're not being called on it, because that means that they're really cheating.
No,
Maybe
that
not
means they'll get cut.
intentionally.
That means they'll get caught in
In
eliminations.
theory. In theory.
Right.
It doesn't always happen.
So I'm going to take the, and I go through different iterations. I think the one I have now is probably close to done. So I'll take the latest one and I will post it to Slack. If there's some other place to post it that someone would like me to put it out, I can do that also. But it will be out on Slack again and it'll be the latest and greatest.
You could throw it on GTEL. They'll find mine. Stuff like this,
It'll
the
blow up.
community would like.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, r/.
So someone come up afterwards. We've got the internet. Show me how to do it. And we can get on Cheap Delphi.
Do you want to go ahead and split your groups? Since I think Mike's done. Thank you very much, Ms. Westhoven.
Thank you.